Of that. That's the sound of power and the call of the open road. That's the sound of the newly designed 2019 Indian Chieftain Limited. Yeah, Indian. It's more than a bike. It's an experience and an American icon. The place to find it, Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga, along with their entire new 2019 line. The open road is calling. Answer the call. Go to Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga. Just look for the sign on 153 and Amnicola. Indian Motorcycle, the true American original.
Join We've Got You Covered with Scott Schrader every Saturday from 10 to 11 on Nooga Radio. From finance to fixtures, we discuss everything you need to know about buying or owning a home, the pitfalls, the perks, and everything in between. Saturday mornings, 10 to 12, right here on Nooga Radio.
For your small business, ending the year the right way can set you up for success come January. No need to let end-of-year panic set in. Easy Books and Taxes can help set up your books or new payroll service so that you can relax and enjoy the holiday season. With 35 years, bookkeeping, individual, and business tax preparation, it's easy. With Easy Books and Taxes, you run the business, we keep the books. Call us today at 423-755-0821.
92.7 Nooga Radio.
Good morning. People here. It's your girl Marie Mott with Free Mott Show. You know what it is. I'm taking it from the streets to City Hall, from City Hall to the mayor's office. Can't leave out the police department. From the Valley Low to the mountaintop, give you guys a bird's eye view to what's going on here in the city of Chattanooga. Good morning, Big Guru. What's up? Oh man, Marie Mott with the Marie Mott Show. Y'all know what it is. The best thing on the radio that you're ever going to hear in the city of Chattanooga. You got to tune in every day, 11, if you want to catch me. And today I have a guest, and I love having people in the studio with me because there's so many things going on. And I know so many people encourage me, but sometimes I need encouragement. Sometimes I need somebody to listen to, right? I don't always want to be the one talking. I want to do listening. And so I have somebody here, Miss Shamika Burt, who's in the studio with me today, who's going to be talking about state-sanctioned business of legally kidnapping children. And man, I was so grateful that she inboxed me, and I had a chance to sit down with her last week and her tell me her personal story. And I was like, man, I have to have you on the radio. But before we get into that, general housekeeping rules. As always, if you want to call in, 800-8949 is the call-in number if you want to call and talk to us. And we're streaming live on Facebook and YouTube as well. You can tune in at the Nooga Radio 92.7 FM page and drop a comment if you can't call in. And if you have not liked the Facebook page, make sure you give us a like. Give us that thumbs up. Let us know that you love us. Show us some love. Oh, Miss Shamika.
Good morning. How you guys doing today?
Thank you for coming on.
I'm so glad to be here this morning.
I'm glad that you decided to come on with me. Like, I know that you met with me. I know that you met with me last week at the spot, and yes. We sat down probably for over an hour, and we talked, and you told me your story, and you agreed to come on the show, and yes. I'm so thankful that you did that. Like, tell the people who you are, and give them the reason why you're fighting back against state-sanctioned kidnapping of children.
Yes. Good morning, guys. I want to first give honor and glory to God, and I want to appreciate Marie giving me this opportunity to speak to you all. I'm Shamika Burt from Chattanooga, Tennessee, born and raised. I've been living here all my life. I have 9 children, gave birth to 9 children in the state of Tennessee, kidnapped and abducted all 9 of my children unconstitutionally. So I'm here today to talk about the incompetent and corrupt family law system.
So how did this whole process start? Like, I know when you sat down with me, you told me that you were living in government housing at the time.
Yes.
Tell the listeners what happened and how your children end up being taken from you.
In the year of 2002, I was living in government housing called Cromwell Hills. And I had an ongoing situation with hot water, the hot water heater. And I put in several work orders for them to come and fix the hot water or the hot water heater. And what they would do is just come in and adjust the heater rather than just replace the heater. And so I had at that time I had 3 kids, one on the way, and a little terrible 2-year-old. And he got into water in our apartment that ran out of the sink at 151.6 degrees to 190 degrees. And I'm like, this is just unethical. So when I tested the plumbing code, it said that water temperatures are supposed to be set at 120, 121 to 130. Well, that didn't happen in my case. My son suffered a blister on his foot. I took him to the hospital. When I went to the hospital, they put Neosporin on it, made me stay at the hospital with him, told me I wouldn't be taking him home. And from there, I didn't leave the hospital with my child. They rode him out in a red wagon, and that was the last time I seen him. He's 19 years old now, and my kids are coming back home one by one. And so I find myself repeating this story over and over and over again. I've got 3 cases in federal court right now against the Department of Children's Services, Department of Human Services, and the Child Support Division.
So when they took your son, did they come back and take your other? So this was all stemming from basically he received a burn.
Yes.
From extremely hot water.
Yes. Yes.
That you had no control over because you lived in government housing.
Right.
So they took him, and did they come back and take the remainder of your children?
They did. When I took him to the hospital, then a caseworker came in. Black young lady, I won't say her name, but she came in, and I thought that, well, hey, her and I can relate. I'm gonna tell her what's going on. I need her to go out to my apartment to check this water. And she just wasn't listening to anything I had to say. And so they finally went out, her and a detective, and they went and tested the water, and they came back. Oh yeah, it's extremely hot, but we still have a situation going on. We feel you hurt your child. And I'm like, hey, I'm 8 months pregnant, and I have 3 other kids that are in school. I mean, you just don't wake up one morning and say, hey, I want to pick one of my children to harm. That's just crazy. And the thing of the matter is, I'm not the only mother who suffered these crimes against humanity for financial gain. Rights are removed from parents, human rights, civil rights, and even religious rights, and I'm angry in a positive way about that. I 5 of my children were removed from labor and delivery. I didn't get a chance to birth them, nurture them, love them. 4 children were removed from my home. Parents are really trapped into a system and by the Child Protective Service. They take them out of your home in the middle of the night. Parents are treated like refugees. They're dazed and glazed and have no one to talk to, no one to turn to, and that was me. And I started, kind of figuring that out and said, wait a minute, I'm not the only person who's going through this. Something has got to give. I got to do something. And that's how I started my support group. We're still here. But I found that in having that support group, it was not a lot of people who were willing to just step out and come and advocate about the situation.
Well, that's something that I'm finding in a lot of issues. A lot of people are terrified.
Yes.
They're terrified of maybe losing their jobs or losing opportunity. They're terrified. A lot of when we talk about government overreach, and I know I've talked about that even in my personal experience when I was arrested back in January, and I went down to the Hamilton County Jail. And after being there for about 2 hours, I'm put in handcuffs and I'm carted down a hallway and put in the back of a van like I'm being kidnapped myself.
Right.
And then I look up after about a 20-minute van ride, and I'm at Core Civic, and no one ever told me where I was going, what they're doing with me, unless and why it's important to talk about a lot of these things as far as you, the listener that's tuning in, is that unless you've been through these situations, you wouldn't believe.
Right.
You wouldn't believe that these are things that are happening to people, everyday people. Could be your neighbor, could be your church member, could be the person in your social club.
Yeah.
Every single day.
I tell people who think they got it together, because, I look at moms and I look at fathers and I'm like, look at that. That's just beautiful. But they don't know that there's people out there watching to legally kidnap and abduct their children. And what behooved me is that during this time, there was a lawsuit against the Department of Children's Services called...
Hold up. Hold up. So you mean that we have people determining whether or not you're a good parent. Meanwhile, citizens are suing them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Legal cases against them about how they're operating or really not operating in the best interest of families and children.
Exactly. And there was a lawsuit, as I was saying, that started Children's Rights, put out a lawsuit against the Department of Children's Service called the Brian A. settlement. It was the Brian A. versus Haslam. And they were taking kids into custody. The kids were sleeping on the floors. They were not placing these kids. And matter of fact, here's the sheet right here, the Brian A. versus Haslam. And the federal government put them over on federal oversight. They had to watch them to make sure that these kids are not just being thrown into the system, which they were, and not exiting the system. And none of those children are mine. And they had 17 years. The federal government gave them 17 years to get this together.
Hold up. Because I want to pull some of this apart, because there's this expectation, and it's always funny how it works. There's always this expectation of citizens to do everything right now.
Right.
But when it comes to you sue them because they're overstepping their constitutional reach.
Exactly.
Then they get 17 years to get their act together. 17. Meanwhile, they're still determining, even though they're corrupt, even though they're not in the best interest of children. They're children like Brian A. in Memphis when he was 9 years old, who were in state custody, sleeping on floors.
Yes.
No permanent placing, no permanent family, no permanent housing. You're telling me that 17 years of oversight.
Yes, ma'am.
And they still got to take children.
They still get the opportunity to take children because it's money, federal incentive.
Hold on, wait. So you're telling me, yeah, I'm just a normal person, and I know my listener is probably just the average Joe. You're telling me the state gets money to destabilize families, and I now this is not to say that against the Department of Children's Services or Child Protective Services. This is not really a slander, but I understand in some instances kids do need to be removed from their environment. Yes. But I firmly believe, and this is just my opinion, that needs to be a last-ditch effort.
It needs to be a last-ditch effort, and they need to, all this federal funding that they have, they can hire top investigators to do thorough investigations. You know, because it's fundamental. It's a fundamental right for parents to be a parent. You know, but they violate that daily.
Say that again.
It is a fundamental right to be a parent.
It's not just a fundamental right. It's a God-given right for you to be a parent.
Exactly.
If you're not willing to, if you're not that parent that wants to go sign away your rights, that means that you want to raise your children. And let me just be clear for the folks, because part of this phenomena, this culture that fueled the legal abduction of children is people over sensationalizing child abuse in the first place. Now, I'm just going to be real. The difference in discipline is based on culture.
Yes.
So for certain cultures, the discipline is little Johnny, go to your room. And we can laugh because we know that that's not African American culture. So African American culture means, you may get spanked on your behind. You may get dish duty for 2 months.
Well, honey, let me tell you, my mother was so powerful. Angela Burt, she can give me a look. She didn't have to spank me. She can look from across the room, and I knew then to sit down.
Exactly.
You know, so yeah, that's just the culture thing.
Right. So, for First of all, it's none of your business, with the exception of if people are beating a child, or you can just see the signs. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
You see the signs of abuse.
Right.
Come on now.
I had no history of it. I mean, you can check my record from 2002 on back. I had no criminal history. I've never been
in trouble.
Never dealt with.
Never been arrested.
I had been arrested for driving without license at 16 years old.
And that's it.
Yeah.
No history.
I got in my granny
of
car and wanted
violence.
to drive. No.
And one day you woke up and decided you were going to be a terrible mother. But wait,
that's what they felt.
But you already had several children at this point.
I did. Mm-hmm. I was a parent volunteer at Lakeside Elementary, at Hillcrest. I mean, I stayed in my children's school. I won't say I was the best mom, but I was a good mom.
Who's the best mom? If you're the best mom or the best father, please call in 800-8949 because we would like to get tips on how to be the best parent ever.
Yes.
First of all, parenting, and I'm not a parent yet, but my relationship with my parents got so much better after I got grown because they got older.
Right.
There's things so my mom says to me all the time, life, there's no handbook to life.
Mm-hmm.
There's no handbook to life. And my grandmother would keep it simple. And she said, baby, you'll understand it better by and by.
Oh, yeah.
You'll understand it better by and by. And that by and by is that life experience that there's, even when, for some people, I learned how to be a great parent because I read books. And books help.
Right.
No, don't get me wrong. But there's no handbook that tells you how to perfectly raise children. You're going to fumble. You're going to make mistakes.
And you're exactly right about that. My oldest son, he's 27 years old. And the greatest gift I felt like I gave my children is teaching them how to pray and taking them to church, because that is just what I was raised in. Mm-hmm. But when my son was in foster care and he would sneak and call me, he would call us and I tell him, I say, Mari, you're not supposed to be on that phone. He'll say, but Mama, I want to talk to you. And CP, Child Protective Service, had already trained me to not talk to my children, to not be around my children, to not advocate for my children. But my son said, I said, Mari, you've got to pray. He said, Mama, prayers are not helping. Mm-hmm. And that broke my heart. I sat the phone down. I cried. I got everything out. And I got on that phone with some might. I said, that prayers work around here. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I had to give him that hope, that stability back because I felt like he was losing it. Mm-hmm. For him to say prayers not working, because that's what got me here today. I get emotional when I get to talking about this because those are my children. And they took everything from me. I paid all my child support they created.
So tell the people, because this is so part of our viewpoint on a lot of things going on in society is based really on our ignorance of it.
Yeah, the ignorance
because
of the law.
we because not only ignorance of the law, but often because we make opinions and assumptions about people and things without actually sitting down and asking a person to tell their story. And so this is what, listener, if you don't walk away with anything other than today, before you judge a person, before you make assumptions about a person, sit down with them or talk to them and try to understand their story and what they've been through and what they're going through. Yes. You've never walked in anybody else's shoes but your own. And I'm telling you that sometimes the assumptions you make about a person are just based purely in your ignorance. And if you knew better,
you'd do better.
You would make a better decision.
Yes, ma'am.
But you paid. So they put you through this process of steps, right?
Yes.
What are those steps?
They draw up what they do is buy time. Mm-hmm. They never tell you about the 15 months. If your child stays in custody for 15 months, that's time for adoption. This is what I call, because I wrote 2 books, Black Sheep of Tennessee and Look Into These Tennessee Eyes, that I'm trying to get published now. But and what I described in one chapter of my book is they do an alphabetical merit. You go before a referee and he tell you to do A, B, C, and D. And that's setting up parent plans. They want you to go to psychiatric counseling, whatever they want you to do. These hoops, you got to jump through them. Well, they don't tell you about the time that they're clocking this time. You don't have any clue that it's a time limit on this. Mm-hmm. Because if it's a time limit, you'll be around here running ragged. Yeah, running ragged. So that's the game that they play to end up adopting and terminating parental rights, which is what they did to me, even after completing their permanency plans. I went to all their psych evaluations, and I went to my own so that I can, see like versus who's right and who's
like
wrong.
A second opinion.
Yeah, a second opinion. So, and I always got that good second opinion. Mine always outweighed theirs, because when the state pays for something, the state is going to help the state. But it's been rough. Like,
how much did you pay in fines and fees to try to get your children back?
And with my family help, I would want to say, oh my God, at least $20,000 to $30,000, probably even more.
Are y'all listening? Dear listener, do you?
And that's not including the child support. And as I look up the child support, I'm like, and they're all talking about paternity in the Tennessee Code annotated paternity. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm the mom. Where is maternal in here? It's like the child support system was set up for the man, but I end up being that person on child support. And I didn't mind, because those are my kids. I had to do what I had to do. And I basically did that because the courts ordered me to do that. And I said, okay, let me do this. This is what's going to get my kids back. But they didn't tell me that clock was ticking. And so when it stopped, they said, oh, okay, we're terminating your parental rights and you'll never see them again. The state work on severing bonds, but they say they work to reunite families, and they don't. All 9 of my children have been separated, not only from me, but from each other.
This is a heavy conversation today, but a much needed conversation. And we're going to continue to get into it on the second half of the segment. If everything was all right, why did people sue our current governor? Governor Haslam.
They did?
Oh, man. The legal kidnapping of children, which is a state-sanctioned business. Y'all better stay tuned for the second half of the segment, because we're talking about restoring families and parental rights and doing ultimately what's in the best interest of our children. Stay tuned for the second half of the segment.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Police say a young man who had just turned 17 fought them as they tried to cuff him. Officers say Tyree Benford and another juvenile broke into a home on East 48th Street, making off with TVs, Xboxes, and a laptop. Police were able to track down the suspects in the stolen property, but Mr. Benford wasn't going down without a fight. He eventually ended up headfirst into an anthill and was later treated for an allergic reaction to the bites. 3 people were shot just outside Cleveland State Community College. Police confirmed a 16-year-old suspect was arrested Wednesday night, charged with aggravated assault and attempted second-degree murder. Police spokeswoman Evie West said the 3 victims taken to the hospital, the severity of their injuries are not confirmed. And the state of Georgia saw an explosion of registered voters following the close of the window to register. There are now nearly 7 million registered voters in the state. Val St. John for Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7 Action News now.
Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons from 3 to 6 p.m. on Nooga Radio 92.7 FM.
Nooga Radio 92.7.
Cash, 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 and more cash. Get 8.1% return on your money. Rick Davis can turn your cash into real money. Gold and silver bullion. American Eagle Gold. The banks give you a measly 1.9%. At Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds, you'll get 8.1% return on your money. 8.1% return on your money. Wow! Whether you're buying an ounce or 100 ounces, Rick guarantees it in writing. 8.1% Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds. Brainerd Road, Chattanooga.
It's that time of year again. For the 7th year, Wings Over North Georgia Air Show will be Saturday, October the 13th and Sunday, October the 14th. You'll see some of our government's finest assets flying in the world today. The rarely seen Air Combat F-22 Raptor demo team and the A-10 Warthog will both headline the show, along with Tora, which is the reenactment of Pearl Harbor to include pyrotechnics. Patty Wagstaff and Michael Goulian, both world aerobatic champions, will be showing off their amazing skills, along with numerous other aviation rock stars. On the ground, you'll be able to experience military static displays and even have an opportunity to ride in a Huey or Cobra helicopter. Wings Over North Georgia is an action-packed way to spend the weekend with your family. You can even camp on the grounds. The Richard B. Russell Regional Airport is the place for all the action on October the 13th and the 14th. For tickets and camping reservations, visit wingsovernorthgeorgia.com.
I'm Bo Watson, and I approve this ad. Neighbors, I'm your state senator, Bo Watson. Jobs, education, safety. These were my priorities when I first ran for office, and they continue to be my focus. We've made great progress in Tennessee the past 4 years. Let's keep it going. Believe in Tennessee. Vote Bo in November. Paid for by friends of Bo Watson, Boy W. Watson III, Treasurer, votefortennessee.com.
Your home is a constant work in progress. Repaint the walls? Yeah, easy enough. Leaky faucet? There's a video for that. But roof repair? You might want some help. That's where Chattanooga Roofing Contractors come in. They have 3 generations of roofing excellence you can count on. Leave the ladder in the garage. Go to chatroofing.com. That's chatroofing.com for Chattanooga Roofing Contractors, a roofing company you can trust. Man, you sure you know what you're doing?
Yeah, I worked with my dad on his truck all the time. Just one more bolt to go.
Yeah, wrong bolt. Today's truck ain't your daddy's truck. For repairs on today's vehicles, you need Amco Transmission and Total Car Care of Chattanooga on Lee Highway. Stay on the road, not in the garage. Amco Transmission on Lee Highway. Get it done the right way. The Thompson Pet Way. Yeah, I just put that anywhere.
Join We've Got You Covered with Scott Schrader every Saturday from 10 to 11 on Nooga Radio. From finance to fixtures, we discuss everything you need to know about buying or owning a home, the pitfalls, the perks, and everything in between. Saturday mornings, 10 to 12, right here on Nooga Radio.
Nooga Radio, Chattanooga weather.
Expect breezy but drier weather out there for your afternoon. Decreasing clouds will give way to some sunshine. Highs into the lower 70s. Tonight, clear, chilly. Overnight lows mid and upper 40s. For Friday, lots of sun. Beautiful highs upper 60s. Looking good for Saturday as well. Get ready for the Wings Over North Georgia Air Show this weekend at the Russell Regional Airport in Rome, featuring the U.S. Air Force F-22 Raptor and A-10 Warthog. For tickets, wingsovernorthgeorgia.com. And I'm Swargene 12, Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ford.
Nooga Radio 92.7.
What's going on, beautiful people? It's Mott Show, and I'm hitting it hard. I got Miss Shamika Burke here in the studio with me today, and we're talking about the legal state-sanctioned kidnapping, or maybe even better, let me make it just make sense. The state-sanctioned human trafficking. Human trafficking.
Yes, ma'am.
We are allowing children, and I am telling you, the purposes of my show, you can tune in to other people if you want to hear about what celebrity is wearing this, who was on Real Housewives of Signal Mountain. I don't know. I don't look at reality television. If that's what you're looking for, I'm so sorry you've tuned in to the wrong station. But if you're looking for some hope, some light, some truth, how to get involved, we have to wake up. Amen. It is literally so much going on. And I am concerned that if we are allowing children to be kidnapped, we are allowing families to be destabilized right before our very eyes. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Talk to us. Hello. Good morning. Hello. Caller, if you can, give us a call back. I would love to chop it up with you, 800-8949, if you want to call and talk to us. But please, good people, I need you to share this, because this is something that is happening by the state. And I was talking about this. I have my own, of course, we got to let the commercials run during the commercial break. But usually I take that time on my personal Facebook page and I give little additional tidbits that you won't hear on the radio. And I try to double back on that once I get back on air.
And one of the things that I firmly believe, and this is my personal opinion, if the state is going to put its nose into people's personal lives and in their family and in their home, it needs to have all of its facts together.
Right.
It needs to have every shred of credible evidence. And if we have found that the people often who are looking into this, I'm not going to say that they're terrible people, but they're not qualified to do a job like this.
Exactly.
They're not qualified to do a job like this. I believe we need a separate entity that their whole purpose is, if the state feels that a child is being neglected to the point or being neglected or abused, and they need to remove that child from the home, we need a separate independent investigatory service whose sole job is all they do is go take looks at the children, maybe meet them at school, whether it's or they reach out to the parents or whatever it is, and all they do is just report the facts.
Right.
Simple and plain. They don't do anything other than that. And then the caseworker or whoever has no dealings or no bearings on anything that has to do with investigatory services.
Exactly.
But I think it's difficult when you have people who just went to college. They went to college to learn how to maybe talk to kids or to just be a kid's caseworker. A caseworker is not a detective.
Right. And during a little so-called reformation, I had came up with my own Reformation Act for the child welfare system. And I believe that it should be independent audits on every state or child protective service department. Get in touch with your congressman and state officials, and maybe the door will slowly open. And I feel that a federal congressional hearing is needed, but due to the hundreds and hundreds of cases, I feel that they should remove and abolish the federal and state financial incentives, and those are taxpayer dollars. Those dollars have changed child protective services into a business that takes children and separates family for money. Not only that, they should open family court, remove confidentiality laws, give parents their rights verbally and in writing. Termination of right cases should be held before a jury. Family rights and parents' rights must be protected. We do not need more influence like the United Nations Convention on the Rights of a Child. It's anti-parent, and it's anti-child, and it's anti-common sense for the family. There has to be a preservance for any great reform, and a great reform is needed in this city of Chattanooga, Tennessee. As Charles Ferguson put it, how do you tame a lion that is well fed? First, you must bring him down. Second, you must lower his stomach. And how do you tame child protective service? And it may be by closing it completely and starting it all over again. Because my children, they took all 9 of my children, separated them not only from me, but from each other as siblings, brothers and sisters. So with pro-family values in their closing is case law from state appellate and federal district courts and to the United States Supreme Court.
Good morning. Talk to us.
Hey, I wanted to chime in when you said about what it takes to be a best parent. And I'm saying with the social media stuff, you got to cut some of that out and just give your child space and just talk to them. See what's going on in their lives.
Oh, yeah.
See what kind of friends they hang around. See why you like this hairstyle. You know, what kind of girl or boy you like. You know, you got to kind of like spark interest. I ain't talking about being the parent and just be on them. But I mean, like, take them out with you. You know, do stuff around the house with them. You got to be more involved because they so, you know, I grew up in the pager area. And, you know, now they so like into this phone thing. You know, you got to kind of like be more aggressive with the phone with them. You know, like just make them more like, I don't know how to say it. Make them more go outside and play type thing. You know? And that's basically what I want to say. Y'all doing a good job. Keep pushing. All right, bye.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Man, I awesome. Appreciate the love. 800-8949 if you want to call in and chop it up with us. But this is a state-sanctioned business, not a state-sanctioned service. Mm-hmm. It stopped being a service a long time ago. And I want to say this for you, the listener. So when you look at the statistics of actually how a lot of there's been a reduction in the people calling in to actually call-ins against somebody saying that they've abused their child
too easy
is because a lot of times it ends up being false. And so this
too easy.
This is a dirty game. This is a dirty game. And at the end of the day, the person that I'm concerned the most about is the child.
Yes.
The child who, once they're removed from their parent, and you got to understand, especially a mother. And again, this is not talking about those extreme cases where kids are being abused, locked in a closet,
exactly,
or anything like that. Absolutely not. Those kids need to be removed at all costs for their personal safety.
Yes.
They need to be removed from their parents.
Yes.
There are some parents out there whose sole goal in life is to abuse and to hurt their children.
Yes.
And some of them have died in the custody of those type of parents. But I believe for the most parents, a lot of parents either make a mistake because they're very young. They make a mistake maybe because they have several kids. It's a lot going on,
right?
And a child gets injured. Oh, a child gets injured. The next thing you know, you're a terrible parent.
Oh yeah.
And,
you go to
basically,
prison.
Basically, that's what happened in your case.
Yes,
your child got injured, and because it happened under your watch, Jesus Christ! I mean, I can't tell you. I was a rambunctious, just always into something kid. If every time I got into something, got injured, the people came, like I would have left my mom alone.
Right. But I wanted to say to the listeners that this is not the first time that this has happened in Chattanooga housing. In 2007, there was a case where a young lady was living in Harriet Tubman housing, and her daughter's feet were literally burnt up, and they had to. She took her daughter to the hospital. They had to fly her from Tennessee to Georgia to get her feet like reconstructed. But guess what? Nobody stepped in and took her children. But actually, Chattanooga housing paid her.
They settled.
They settled with her. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, they took all 9 of my children for one incident.
One incident
that happened. Didn't have a criminal history before this. They made me this mental anguish type person. Like it just broke me apart, and
but often when you see this happening, this often happens to poor and impoverished people. And very rarely does this happen to anybody who doesn't have the means to fight back. Often this happens to people who are ignorant of their rights, who don't have any means to be able to afford a lawyer to fight in your behalf. So you're kind of stuck. You want the trust, and you said this before. So you had a caseworker who you believe that you could try to work with.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, and it's not a slight against them, they are going to do what's in the best interest for some of them, for the child, what they perceive. But here again, it shouldn't be left up to the perception of somebody else.
Exactly.
It should be left up to the overwhelming evidence.
Yes.
The
clear and convincing.
We talked about this yesterday. Beyond a reasonable doubt.
Amen.
Beyond a reasonable doubt. What we are effectively allowing when we hear instances like this, when we see cases like this, and y'all know what I tell y'all all the time. Go back and look at, fact check me if you will. I want you to go back and look at Brian A. versus Haslam.
Yes, Brian A. versus Haslam. And if I can, I wanted to give you a quote from the U.S. Supreme Court. According to the U.S. Supreme Court, parental rights are fundamental rights, substantive, and may not be taken without a clear and convincing evidence standard having been met with full due process and strict scrutiny. Now that's coming from U.S. Supreme Court, but they never abide by their own rules and their own laws. But I wanted to touch a little basis on the caseworkers.
Go ahead.
Had a meeting last year. I was called to a meeting last year with one of the old caseworkers on the case. I guess she wanted to just relieve herself from taking my children. And she said a lot of things that I'm just not sitting well with me. And one of her statement was, if you got to learn how to play the system. And I'm like, my mom's never taught me how to do that.
Well, most people don't intend on being swept up in the system. So how do you learn how to play a dirty game if you never intend to play it?
Right. And I looked at him like, learn how to play the system. Lady, these are my children. You know, we don't play systems. We don't play games, and especially when you have values. But I want to say caseworkers and social workers are often guilty of fraud. They withhold and destroy evidence, and they seek wrongfully to terminate parental rights while being protected by states' immunities. There is a huge bureaucracy made up of judges, referees, courts, appointed attorneys, guardian ad litem, social workers, court investigators, state employers, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, foster parents, adoptive parents, on and on, looking to children in the state for their job security. Judges have control over private living arrangement and income of $48.3 million American dollars. The United States Census Bureau reported in 2002 that $40 billion in transfer payments were made between households of custody parents and other parents.
Hold up. $40 billion?
Yes, ma'am. Enough for these programs to reunite families.
So parents have paid, and I'm assuming, I'm making an assumption, and you correct me if I'm wrong. Parents have made this desperate attempt, monetary attempt, to win back their children from the state.
Yes.
By paying the state.
Yes.
To the tune all across America of $40 billion, and often those children are not reunited with their parents.
Exactly. And environments covered with confidentiality laws that protect the wrong people. Fathers and mothers are victims of the unjust system. Child support payments, even without having visited with your children, took all I had by choking the life out of me. It's terrible. It's terrible. I had to come here today, and I appreciate for you to let me come here to talk about this incompetent and corrupt system. It took me 17 years to learn the corrupt system, and it took them 17. It took Department of Children's Service 17 years of federal oversight, and they're still giving them a chance. They're still giving them the opportunity.
And the parents are the last people in line for that grace and that mercy to be able.
They're not even in line. They're not in line. They're forgot about. They're done. They're abolished. They're done with. And I'm one of those parents. And you know, one of the caseworkers told me. She said, "Well, if you're in the mall and you see your children, you've got to turn around, walk out." And I have learned to live that way. And I'm angry because my children come home one by one. Now, my oldest son, he's just like the glue to my family. It's like God just gave him a gift of discernment, of understanding, and he understands it all, you know. But the rest of them is like, "Mama, what happened?" They don't know that I paid all my child support off. They don't know that I completed all permanency plans. They don't know that I went to all these psych evaluations, started a support group for myself and unlike other families across the world for them to get educated about what's going on in this kidnapping and abduction system. Human trafficking.
Yeah.
Reliving this pain.
And it's important to talk about this because last night I read a case of a family in New York a wealthy family in New York that had to give back children to a poor family in Georgia because of a similar instance like this. And they had been battling. Their children were all the way several states away.
My goodness.
How difficult is it for you to fight back for your children when not only they've been taken away from you, but then you live in Georgia and they're all the way in New York City?
Oh, I can agree, because my ninth child, when they put me on probation, I was they criminally took this to criminal court. Criminal court threw the child abuse charges out and charged me with attempted aggravated child neglect. So I did 10 years probation on that. And I got to know a probation officer by the name of Miss Taylor.
And I want to talk about this because I talked about it yesterday. Never plead guilty.
Yes.
You pled guilty to the neglect, even though you weren't guilty.
Yes, I was.
But why was that? You were looking at what?
I was looking at like 12 to 20, like 20 years in prison. All I heard was numbers. And I'm like, oh no. And for a person to not know the system, the legal system, I'm like, I will do whatever it is I need to do to continue to fight to get my children back to be free. And they gave me 10-year probation with completing parenting classes, completing anger management, and going to a place called the AIM Center. And I completed all of that, paid all of my child support off, and they still terminated my parental rights.
Are you listening, dear listener, my friend? Are you listening? You can't. I feel it on the inside that what I'm speechless, because I don't think any other person could go through this and not jump off the Walnut Street Bridge.
My cousin said the same thing, but it was God himself and just the spirituality that my grandmother left me with. She raised me in the church. And I'm like, Christians don't kill themselves. You know, Christians don't just lay down and let cars run over them. Christians stand up and they fight and they tell the world who they are, you know. And I just couldn't lay down and just allow this to continue to fester. But I wanted to tell you, when you was telling me you read that story about the family from Georgia wanting their kids back out of New York City, my probation officer gave me a traveling pass while I was on probation to go to near Savannah, Georgia. I was going with some friends and for the holidays, and I end up giving birth. Tennessee drove 6 hours out of their jurisdiction to kidnap and abduct my last baby. I mean, literally from the hospital. So, I mean, it only gets worse. And I have to laugh to keep from crying, guys. This has been 17 years of mental anguish that, you know, I'm just sick of it. And I'm also mad at Bill Clinton because in 1987, he signed into the Adoption Act to take children. And I voted for him.
Oh, man. I know Mike still heard that, and he's probably going to try to call in before the end of the show and start riffing Democrats. But my listeners, I want you to please, if you do nothing else, please go look up Brian A. versus Haslam and see where we have allowed the legal abduction, kidnapping, human trafficking of children for monetary gain. Mm-hmm. The overall system is built on monetary gain. And I'm telling you, this is not a slander against caseworkers. I know some good ones. Yeah. I know some really good case who went to school to try to help children. A lot of them, they're just caught up in the bureaucracy, and then the caseworkers are really kind of at the base, overworked, underpaid. Yes. I'm telling you, I know some. I know some. Yes. Who look out for the best interest of children, but are still in a system that is highly bureaucratic. Yes. With the sole basis of making money. Yes. Instead of keeping families together as we should, and children in homes. Yes. As we should. Marie Mott with the Marie Mott Show. My guest, Shamika Burt. Man, what a heavy show today, but y'all know what it is. I got to keep it real. Why? Because you're not going to hear this anywhere else. Fight back, dear people, and do not be discouraged. I believe change is on the way. Marie Mott with the Marie Mott Show. If no one is taking the time today to tell you that they love you, I love you. And there's nothing you can do about that. Y'all have a good day here in the city of Chattanooga.
3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news. Now.
Police say a young man who had just turned 17 fought them as they tried to cuff him. Officers say Tyree Benford and another juvenile broke into a home on East 48th Street, making off with TVs, Xboxes, and a laptop. Police were able to track down the suspects in the stolen property, but Mr. Benford wasn't going down without a fight. He eventually ended up headfirst into an anthill and was later treated for an allergic reaction to the bites. 3 people were shot just outside Cleveland State Community College. Police confirmed a 16-year-old suspect was arrested Wednesday night, charged with aggravated assault and attempted second-degree murder. Police spokeswoman Evie West said the 3 victims taken to the hospital, the